I was in Oregon reviewing a different timber tract when my phone rang. The area code was local, Washington State, where I'd grown up. The woman's voice was professional, slightly uncertain. "Ms. Chin? This is Rebecca Holloway from Pacific Northwest Timber Management. We're processing a harvest contract for the Forestland at 14200 Cascade Ridge Road. Standard due diligence requires we verify ownership before mobilizing equipment. County records show you as the sole deed holder since 2016. Is that correct?" My coffee went cold in my hand. Cascade Ridge. The 240 acres of mixed Douglas fir and western red cedar my grandfather had bought in 1967. The land Dad always called ours, even though he'd never owned a single square foot of it. "That's correct," I said. "I'm the only owner." "Perfect. We'll update our files. There seems to be some confusion. A Mr. Marcus Chin signed the contract, claiming to represent the family trust. We'll need to cancel and refund his deposit." Marcus. My brother. The golden child who'd majored in business and minor in disappointing our parents in ways they somehow never noticed. "I'd like to see that contract," I said. The PDF arrived in my email 3 minutes later. Marcus's signature, bold, confident, right above the line stating he had full authority to execute timber sales on behalf of Chin Family Holdings, LLC. Below that, a harvest schedule. Selective cutting of 180 acres. Clear cutting of the remaining 60 acres where the oldest growth stood, trees my grandfather had refused to touch. Total payment, $847,000. He'd scheduled the work for April. It was February. I opened my files. The ghost ledger. I'd started keeping it 4 years ago, after the Christmas when Marcus announced his promotion to regional sales director and Dad spent 40 minutes praising his achievements while I sat there having just closed on my third timber tract. When I mentioned it, Dad said, "That's nice, sweetheart," and turned back to Marcus. The entries chronicled a specific kind of theft. Thanksgiving 2019. Marcus's boat purchase gets champagne toast. My forestry degree gets, hope you find a nice man to settle down with. Cost, recognition I earned. Summer 2020, grandfather's funeral. Marcus gives speech about family legacy. I managed grandfather's care for 2 years while Marcus visited twice. Plus the truth. March 2022. I present forest management plan to preserve old growth. Dad, leave business to your brother. Cost being heard. December 2023. Marcus uses my property as collateral reference for his failed restaurant. Doesn't ask permission. Cost, boundaries that should exist. The ledger ran 37 entries. Each one a small erasure. Each one training me to expect nothing. But the Forestland, that was different. Grandfather left it to me specifically. The will was ironclad. To my granddaughter Sarah, who sees what I saw, that some things shouldn't be rushed, harvested, or sold. She understands patience. I understood something else too. Marcus had forged documents claiming family trust ownership. That wasn't civil trickery. That was fraud. I called my attorney. The procedural machinery ground forward with inevitable precision. Each step felt less like revenge and more like watching natural consequences unfold. A forest fire clearing dead wood so new growth could begin. Step 1. Document collection, week 1. I organized everything. Grandfather's will, probated in 2016, leaving me sole ownership. County deed records showing continuous ownership in my name for 8 years. The forged contract Marcus signed. Corporate records showing Chin Family Holdings, LLC didn't exist. Marcus had invented it. Tax returns proving I'd paid property taxes annually while Marcus contributed nothing. Step 2. Legal consultation, week 1. My attorney, Patricia Wu, specialized in timber fraud. She'd seen versions of this before. Family members selling trees they didn't own, usually discovered when logging companies performed standard title verification. The statute is clear, Patricia explained. Fraudulent timber contracts carry criminal penalties. He signed a legal document claiming authority he didn't possess. The logging company lost time and money on due diligence. You have standing for civil damages. The county prosecutor will be interested in the criminal aspect. We filed simultaneously, civil suit for damages and a criminal complaint with the county prosecutor. Step 3. Investigation, weeks 2 to 4. The prosecutor's office moved faster than I expected. They subpoenaed Marcus's bank records. Found the $84,700 deposit, 10% down payment from Pacific Northwest Timber. Found where he'd already spent $31,000. New truck, vacation to Hawaii, down payment on a boat slip. They interviewed the logging company. Rebecca Holloway provided documentation. Her initial outreach to Marcus, his confident assurance that he managed the family forestlands, his impatience when she mentioned needing ownership verification. He told me county records were outdated, Rebecca testified in her deposition. Said the family was in the process of transferring everything to the LLC for estate planning. He seemed so certain. I trusted him. Step 4. Marcus's defense, week 5. Marcus hired an attorney who tried 3 approaches. First, family understanding. She knew we'd eventually sell timber together. Patricia demolished this with my emails to Marcus from 2019 explicitly stating the land was mine alone and not for sale. Second, honest mistake about ownership structure. The prosecutor showed Marcus had Googled how to form Timber LLC 2 weeks before signing the contract. Premeditation, not confusion. Third, the family money that bought the land originally. Patricia presented grandfather's will again. I leave this land solely to Sarah as her brothers have shown no interest in preservation or stewardship. Step 5. Document analysis, week 6. A forensic accountant traced the money. Marcus had created a shell LLC by filing basic paperwork online. 220 minutes of work. Then he'd represented himself as its managing member to the logging company. The company's own records showed Marcus had provided proof of ownership. A doctored deed he'd created by scanning the original from county records and adding Chin Family Holdings LC in Photoshop. The metadata from the PDF he'd emailed them showed creation date, January 14, 3 weeks before contract signing. The original deed's last modification, 2016 when I'd taken ownership. Step 6. Criminal charges, week 8. The prosecutor filed formal charges. Forgery in the first degree, theft by deception, filing a false instrument. Each a Class C felony in Washington state. Marcus's attorney tried to negotiate. The prosecutor's response was mathematical. Your client attempted to steal $847,000 worth of timber from his sister using forged documents. We don't negotiate away felonies of this magnitude. Step 7. Civil judgment, week 12. The civil case moved faster. Marcus couldn't defend against basic facts. He didn't own the land, he'd forged documents, he'd deposited money for resources he had no right to sell. Judge Morrison's ruling was precise. Mr. Chin engaged in deliberate fraud, creating false documentation to sell timber rights he didn't possess. This represents not merely a family dispute but criminal conduct. Ms. Chin is awarded full restitution plus damages. The damages: $84,700 deposit Marcus had to return, $47,000 in my legal fees, $125,000 in punitive damages for the fraud, $50,000 for emotional distress. Total, $306,700. Marcus had $23,000 in accessible assets. Step 8. Enforcement. The court placed liens on everything Marcus owned. His house, his truck, his investment accounts. Wage garnishment took 25% of his paycheck. His regional director position, the one Dad had praised so effusively, required bonding. The felony charges made him unbondable. He was terminated 3 days after indictment. Step 9. Criminal resolution. Marcus pled guilty to reduced charges. 1 count of forgery, 1 count of theft. Sentencing: 18 months in prison, 3 years probation, full restitution. The judge's statement at sentencing: you violated family trust and legal boundaries. You forged documents to steal from your sister. The fact that timber companies have robust verification procedures is the only reason this fraud was discovered before irreversible damage occurred to old-growth forest. The family's response followed predictable patterns. Dad called me 3 days after Marcus's arrest. You're destroying your brother over a misunderstanding. Family doesn't do this to family. I'd prepared for this. There's a psychological concept called the just world fallacy. The belief that good things happen to good people and bad things to bad people. It protects us from randomness. But it also means when someone we love faces consequences, We assume they're being persecuted, not held accountable. Dad, I said, Marcus forged legal documents to sell $847,000 of my trees. Trees grandfather left to me specifically. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a crime. He made a mistake. Your family. You should forgive. Forgiveness isn't compatible with felony fraud. Those aren't the same category of problem. He hung up on me. Mom tried a softer approach. Marcus is struggling. The legal fees are destroying him. Can't you drop the civil case? He's learned his lesson. He learned that lesson after he spent the deposit money on a truck and vacation? That timing seems important, Mom. She didn't call again. There's a moment in every forest fire when the wind shifts. The burn that seemed contained suddenly changes direction. That's what happened at Marcus's sentencing when Dad testified as a character witness. He spoke about Marcus's achievements, his dedication, his minor mistake in judgment. He never mentioned me. Never acknowledged the theft. Never said my name. The prosecutor cross-examined him. Mr. Chin, did your daughter Sarah own the Forestland in question? Technically yes, but did your son Marcus own any portion of that land? Not on paper but family property. Did your son forge documents to sell timber he didn't own? Silence. Mr. Chin. I suppose so, but thank you. No further questions. Dad's face was ash pale when he left the stand. In trying to save Marcus, he'd confirmed every element of the crime. 6 months later, I stood in the Cascade Ridge Forestland. Spring had arrived, the season Marcus had scheduled for clear-cutting the old growth. Instead, the Douglas firs stood unmoved, 200-year-old giants grandfather had protected. Would continue protecting. I'd hired a forestry consultant to develop a sustainable harvest plan. Selective cutting only, preserving ecosystem integrity. The revenue would fund conservation easements preventing future development. Pacific Northwest Timber reached out again. Legitimate contract this time with me verified through proper channels. Rebecca Holloway personally managed the account. We've implemented additional verification steps, she told me. Your brother's fraud attempt actually helped us identify weaknesses in our process. The restraining order against Marcus was permanent. 3 years probation meant any contact violated his terms. He'd moved 2 states away, working retail, paying garnishment. Dad sent one email. I hope you're happy with what you've done to this family. I didn't respond. There's no arguing with someone who thinks consequences equal persecution. But I thought about it. What had I done to this family? I'd refused to subsidize theft with silence. I'd let legal systems operate as designed. I'd protected something my grandfather entrusted specifically to me. In the old growth section, sunlight filtered through ancient canopy. Some trees were here before my grandfather was born. Would be here long after I died. That kind of patience, that understanding that not everything should be monetized, harvested, rushed, was what grandfather saw in me. Marcus wanted to turn centuries into cash in a single spring. But forests don't work on quarterly earnings reports. Neither did I anymore. The woods were silent except for wind through needles. My phone had reception but I didn't check it. The ghost ledger was closed. The legal files archived. The debts paid in full. From the 240 acres I fought to protect, my future begins now.